Hi there, I'm Laureen DuBeau and I'm a Master Instructor Trainer for Merrithew, specializing in STOTT Pilates. We've been working on cueing and have a series of videos about cueing exercises, but we've mostly been focusing on advanced level exercises. Today I'd like to take a look at an essential level exercise that's done. It's one of the first exercises that we teach. But I want to look at how we can cue this exercise to get the most out of it. A lot of times when we're teaching our basic movements, we don't get as much out of them as we can. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to get the most out of this exercise and how your clients will be able to get a lot more benefit from doing it. The exercise I want to look at is the saw. So for the saw, we're going to start in an upright seated position. My feet are going to be just about shoulder width apart, so not too far apart. And I want to have the pelvis and spine in a vertical position. Not quite neutral, but getting close to being in neutral. One of the things that I do want to have, though, is being right up on top of my sit bones and having my pelvis in a completely vertical position. I don't want to be starting off with the pelvis tip backwards off the sit bones. So if there's some tightness in the lower back or in the back of the legs and the hamstrings, getting into this kind of position, just elevate the pelvis either on a foam cushion or something even a little bit higher like an arc barrel, wherever you can be that's going to bring the pelvis to a vertical position. We want to have the rib cage stacked directly over the pelvis, the shoulders in line, and we want to have the head stacked right on top as well. We want to make sure the head's in the right place. Arms are going to be reaching out to the side, and I'll go through the basic movement of the exercise first. So I'm going to inhale to rotate to the side. On the exhale, I'm going to flex forward over my leg, reaching one arm forward and one arm back. I'll inhale to articulate, coming back up to a vertically rotated position, and then I'll exhale to return back to the front. So it's a 4-breath movement. We're combining a few planes of movement. We've got some rotation in the transverse plane. We've got some forward flexion in the sagittal plane. So there's a little bit more going on here. But there are a few things that we can look at to make this exercise even better. First, we're going to look at the stability of the spine. And even before we begin the movement, we want to have that sense of elongation through the spine. So we want to have that feeling as if we're trying to separate the bones of our spine, each vertebra pulling away from the other one, and we're trying to get taller, top of the head reaching further up towards the ceiling. And what we'll notice as soon as we start doing this is we can get a deeper connection of the core musculature of the torso. So our transversus abdominis engages a little bit better. We even have a little lift of the pelvic floor. Now we're not necessarily cueing a pelvic floor engagement, but by elongating through the spine and having the top of the head lifting up, it automatically gets that engagement of the pelvic floor. So that's the first thing we're looking at. As we go into the rotation, we want to maintain that length through the spine. Even though we know that rotation has compressive forces or creates compressive forces on our spine, we want to think of maintaining that elongation. We're going to spiral through the spine, continuing that spiral into the cervical spine. If we look at our head and cervical placement principle, we want to make sure that we're keeping that in alignment. Our predominant rotation is going to happen from the thoracic spine because we do get a little bit more rotation through that part of the spine than anywhere else. Once I've reached my maximum rotation, or the rotation that I'm going to use for the exercise, I now go into my forward flexion. I'm still thinking of lengthening, so as I dive forward, I'm still thinking of making my spine as long as possible. But here's where we want to find some opposition happening. So as the top of my head reaches down towards my toe, I'm thinking of my belly button pulling backwards, not so far that it's going to pull me off of my pelvis, but I just want to have that sense of scooping backwards as the top of my head scoops forward. So I'm going to flex down over the leg, pulling my belly button backwards,
My front arm is reaching forward over my foot. My back arm is going to medially rotate, and I'm going to push those fingers backwards.
Now, a little note on that medial rotation of the humerus. We want to make sure that it's not causing that humeral head to pop forward. We want to keep it in a good placement and just rotate the arm backwards, so the palm's facing back.
So here I am in my flexed forward position, and I'm reaching both arms away from each other.
So I'm creating that sense of tensional integrity, or tensegrity, the word that we use when we're talking about our fascial training, is being created through the body. So there's much more work going on as I reach through fingertip to fingertip. I often think of this or cue this as a tug of war between my two arms.
So one arm pulling forward, one arm pulling back. Eventually my back arm is going to win, and it's going to pull me up, returning back to my vertical position right on top of my sit bones. And I want to be in that same rotation that I had in the first movement. From there, I'm keeping that sense of reaching out through my fingertips, my head reaching up to the ceiling, my sit bones grounded into the floor, and I can even sense my feet reaching away from me as well. And then I return back to the center, still feeling that sense of length through the spine and the energy reaching out through the arms. So by paying a little bit more attention to everything that's happening in that body, having that sense of oppositional forces, things pulling away from each other, we can get a lot more out of this exercise. We can get a better muscular engagement. We can get more stability and strength through the joints of the body as we're working. So try to take those concepts and apply them to any of the essential level or the easier exercises that we do. We tend to not pay as much attention to them. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again next time.